Come with me on a journey decoding Buddhism. We're going to get into Esoteric Buddhism. Do all of you know what esoteric means?
Spiritual.
Huh?
Spiritual.
Spiritual?
Hidden.
Could be yes.
Understood by a few. Understood by only a few, kind of, it's a...
Esoteric is more
hidden. It does mean hidden.
transcendental. Esoteric,
Yeah,
what not from this realm is in the other one.
right.
spiritual.
Yeah. I found the lecture between Robert Thurman and Deepak Chopra when they discussed the term, and I wrote down some of these, and Deepak Chopra had some really good explanations. But he was saying that, for example, esoteric, the inner sense, the inner subtle knowing of reality, truth, and of morality, once you have that esoteric understanding, you don't need morality anymore, because you are it. And you understand it from the inside out. But the exoteric would be more the outer form of the inner reality. It's a good way to put it. What is the meaning of esoteric and exoteric? Are they opposed to each other? No, they rather complement each other and work together. Esoteric means hidden and inner, while exoteric means public and outer. As inner, esoteric means inner knowing, abstract and mystical, the subtle truths of the inner unformed spirit. The exoteric outer, then, is more like intellectual book knowledge. It is concrete and visible. It is the outer form.
At the center of every single spiritual tradition, you find what gets called mystics or Gnostics. And these are people who have gone right to the deep heart of that particular tradition. And what fascinates me is that what they describe seems to be a universal human experience.
The mystical journey is the heart essence of all religions, but it can be outside of a specific religious tradition as well, but usually it's been in the core, the center. And the essence of each tradition, that's to me what's the mystical path.
By going into that mystery, there are deep experiential answers, so that as you pay attention to the mystery, consciousness becomes transformed and you enter into, paradoxically, a state of deep knowing. So in the ancient West that would be called gnosis, but if you go to the East it's called gnana. It has various names, but there's this knowing before words.
The mystical path is the path of deep interior life that leads one into or establishes a ground for mystical communion or for the process of awakening.
The exoteric is an outer manifestation of the inner reality. The esoteric truths then give us keys to transcending this world of form that is illusory into a world of permanence of the spirit. This is why we need esoteric teachings. And when the student is ready for higher truth, the teacher or the teaching will appear. According to Madame Blavatsky of the Theosophical Society, this she called esoteric philosophy, a phrase frequently used to refer to a body of knowledge about the cosmos, the divine and the human being, and does not take into account only their visible aspect, but more predominantly their invisible, metaphysical and spiritual dimension. Thus, esoteric philosophy often presents a synthesis of science, religion, and philosophy. Although some tenets of this philosophy have been made public, its real teachings are known only to the initiates. Moreover, esoteric philosophy reconciles all religions, strips every one of its outward human garments, and shows the root of each to be identical with that of every other great religion. Thus we find references in the theosophical literature of an Arhat esoteric philosophy, which is connected to an esoteric Buddhic approach. In conclusion, esoteric teachings refer to the narrow path of the mystics, while the exoteric teachings is the broader path of organized religion. So we're going to get into esoteric Buddhism because this Christmas I discovered through Theosophy some amazing things. The Zen masters have worked behind the scenes for eons to give us that higher truth and teaching that had not always been available to the people due to it being esoteric in nature. And that is so because they don't want this teaching to go like pearls before swine for the uninitiated or the profane. But the last 140 years, I just counted, it's about 140 years ago, the Blavatsky started teachings of the Zen Masters through Theosophy, and it's been going forward from there. So we have all these teachings where it's been revealed to us, and the mystery school teachings are becoming now available to us without having to be initiates for like say 5 or 7 years, like in Pythagoras' time. So recently in my research I found that Gautama Buddha gave secret teachings.
Oh wow, I like it.
We've heard about Jesus' lost teachings, and Buddha, I never knew there was secret. I thought it was all secret, but because it's hard to find. But he actually had his own inner mystery school and circle of Arhats or Arhats that he taught the deeper mysteries. Some of the things, he actually did say at one passage, there are so many things I could tell you, but I haven't. And some of these more, the higher truths, you could say, and certain things regarding soul and spirit, and he taught only to a few because of the danger at the time. So that explains a little bit to Buddhists today why he didn't speak of these things. So after hunting in books and on the internet and for information, I discovered more than I bargained for in Theosophy. And did you know the Secret Doctrine comes in 2 books? I don't know if you own the Secret Doctrine, I do. But there are 2 books with an index. And there is actually 6 books. But very hard to find. Again, you have to spend a couple $100 to get the whole set. I happened to find a PDF format of the mystery of the Buddha, which just like, hey, thank you, which talks about when Blavatsky, these are like added writings of Blavatsky, additional information that she gave during her time. And then I found also an article or a book, small book, written by H.P. Sinnett, who was a big proponent of Theosophy back in his day. And he was working with Kuthumi, had a direct relationship with Kuthumi. They knew each other in person. And he said, I feel this prompting to write this book about esoteric Buddhism. And so Kuthumi said, you go for it, and I will supervise. So he'll be in the background there supervising. And so he wanted to be H.P. Sinnett's own creation, so it's from his heart, because we're all in the initiatic path, right? So we're all evolving, and so he's there in the background, kind of like Stephen's behind the camera here, but he's my help. We've been spending 3 years together now, chit-chatting about the teachings every Thursday, and we've come to many realizations together, and it's been a godsend to have that presence in my house and being able to discuss some of these amazing topics. And that's, I think, because of those discussions, I'm here doing this for you. So thank you, Stephen. And Jürgen.
Don't be jealous.
Anyway, I got really excited about the mystery school concept, and I spent the whole Christmas vacation reading about it. Buddha wanted his teachings to survive, but he knew that he was being persecuted and the teachings would be persecuted. So he gave Arya Sangha that role. We'll get into the mystery school here in a second. But he gave it to Arya Sangha and created that mystery school so they could hide that secret teaching. And they say, Blavatsky actually says that it does exist somewhere hidden, kind of like the Nag Hammadi texts, somewhere in the Tibet-Transylvanian region. It's there. He wanted it to be preserved for the future. But we know today that 95% of all monasteries have been destroyed since the invasion. I didn't realize it. At the time, it was 87,000 monks were killed in Tibet in 1949. But since then, without reason, 1 million people have been killed, Tibetans.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea. It's like genocide.
And nobody does anything.
So, very low. And problem is, we'll probably never find that esoteric teaching, but some of it was preserved. One copy of one of the works was given to Blavatsky, and it was called the Golden Precepts. And she memorized it. She was able to memorize it. It's not a big book. And then she printed it. And it was out of print for a long time, but then it came back into print. It looks like this: The Voice of the Silence, Book of the Golden Precepts. It's a very, very easy read, and I haven't read the whole thing yet, but beautiful little book.
Where do you buy this?
I bought it online.
Amazon?
Yeah.
Okay, can we have the name?
It's called The Voice of the Silence.
Voice of Silence.
Being extracts from the Book of the Golden Precepts.
This is actually Buddhist teaching.
There's Buddhist teaching through Blavatsky. Well, actually a copy.
The
The masters worked through Blavatsky, right? And the teaching that they gave through her is Buddhist teaching. So the secret doctrine means the books of Zion, the secret book of Zion, is what it's based on. And Zion is another word for Dhyani. What does that relate to? Dhyani Buddhas. Dhyana means deep or cosmic meditation. So when we think about the Dhyani Buddhas, it's cosmic meditation, but they're cosmic beings. But this book of Zion is the foundation or the base for her book, The Secret Doctrine. And the masters consider themselves esoteric Buddhists. I didn't know that.
All them?
But they didn't want Theosophy to have any close relationship to Buddhism per se, so they didn't want to call it esoteric Buddhism or anything like that, so they call it Theosophy, so to step away from its own teaching. And what the masters have said, truth is the highest religion. More important than, outer churches. So, the secret inner knowledge of the world and its Arhats was hidden, but Buddha hid it for a purpose for us to get in the future time. There is a dictation that's called Time Is Not, from 1985. I don't know if you remember it, but it's an amazing teaching, and basically Buddha is saying we have to live now and here and now, because the teaching, once you hear the teaching of the Buddha or the teaching of the Christ, the true teachings, that is a beck and call. It's calling you home, saying, remember the truth now, because 2,600 years have passed since I was the Buddha, and all of a sudden you're still here and I'm there. I had my enlightenment, you were with me maybe at that time, but you're still here, fighting with your skandhas.
So Johan, skandha, is that all human personality?
No, we're going to have a section on skandhas coming up
Johan,
after this.
Johan,
Yes.
is that where the word scandal comes from?
No, this is a Sanskrit or Pali word. I'll reveal the secret later.
Good. Don't keep it for yourself.
The longer you live in this world, Buddha says, the stronger the bonds and the attachments, and your negative karmas build veil upon veil until you either break or break through. Choose now. That is what I understand that Buddha is saying. Choose now to enter the path. So esoteric Buddhism, originally he called it a Yogacarya or Yogacharya school of esoteric Buddhism. Yoga means yoga, because what's cool is the Yoga Sutras predates the Buddha. So he may have studied yoga himself, at least understood the concept of yoga. And yoga practice is what the school was named after. And this is supposed to be the true teachings of the Buddha, the earliest ones of his mystery school. And
This is how many?
going deeper into Buddha's own esoteric mystery school, this is a summary of several articles that I've read from Theosophy writers who are in the Theosophy movement. And it's a little bit cryptic to read their articles because their language is different, for one. According to Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, Gautama taught to general followers what was called the exoteric teaching, and is called the I doctrine, the doctrine of the I. His inner circle teachings that he gave, he called the heart doctrine, or the heart seal doctrine, and it was only given to the closest of Arhats. Actually, Blavatsky said the exoteric teaching was dead of spirit. And that was very interesting. Her explaining what Theravada Buddhism is, it's not containing the essence of the heart, the spirit, the Holy Spirit, you could say. So, as a result, one Arhat, Arya Sangha, helped Buddha start his mystery school, named Yogacharya School of Buddhism. And they were teaching the existence of the soul, the existence of a permanent self that we call the Atman, or Atta, the existence of God as Brahman, the ultimate supreme reality, and from what I've gathered, also the existence of a spiritual hierarchy. And I say that I've gathered that information because in Tibetan Buddhism today, they have something called the Kala Chakra initiation that the Dalai Lama puts on, not every year, but he's put it on 16 times. 10,000 people gather. So when you see that mandala that they make over 9 days, that is the Kala Chakra initiation. And so Dalai Lama and his helpers, I saw a video for about an hour of this whole event. They spent 9 days learning about this whole Kala Chakra teaching. And I have a couple of pictures later I can show you of this whole manda, explaining the mandala. If you don't get the teaching, you don't get the initiation, is what he's saying. So in that, what's very cool in the Kala Chakra, Kala means time, Chakra means wheel. In the Kala Chakra teaching, they talk about hierarchy. So there are 722 deities that live inside of this Kala Chakra mandala. Yeah, 722. And it's I think 3 or 4 stories high. So it's, when you look at the mandala, you're looking at the building from above with 3 wheels, and the 3 wheels of time. So they have the external time, the internal time, and the other time, or alternative time cycle. And that's the part I'll describe later on. Very cool. But there, from that I gather that there is some teaching of heaven world and about other dimensions or existence. So this teaching and the books, there were some books that were written back in the day, and they were called the Narjol Chodpa teachings relating to this esoteric school. But Madame Blavatsky said none of them were preserved except for possibly in this, somewhere in a monastery in Tibet. Kind of like when Madame Kaspara and Dr. Notovich went to Ladakh and they saw that Isa was here, Jesus was here. Same kind of method of preserving teachings, but it has not been found. And Professor Albrecht Weber was right when he declared that the northern Buddhists alone possess these Buddhist scriptures complete. And this is from the History of Indian Literature, an excerpt. So it's been recognized that there is some inner or hidden teachings about this mystery school. And furthermore, Blavatsky said that her teachings that are in the secret doctrines are those teachings revived. So if we read the secret doctrines, which is harder to read, it's hard to read, we can get some of that lost Buddhic truth. But you've seen the book, The Voice of the Silence. That is about the only thing that we know survived. Then we get a little bit into Tantra. So Buddha did teach Tantra. Tantra was part of the yogic tradition, the yogic practice. And today, a lot of people misunderstand it because it's been perverted, or there are perversions of Tantra, even in Tibetan Buddhism. And so I didn't realize, I never really looked into what Tantra really meant, but when we do decrease, when we visualize, we use the dorje, any of these bells, or those Tibetan horns, all of those are tantric tools. So visualization and the assumption technique of trying to be the master is a tantric tool. So properly used, they can actually accelerate our spiritual journey. And that's why they were important. And Padmasambhava, who introduced Tibetan Buddhism to Tibet, he also introduced tantric practices to them, and another master. So we don't really know that much about this mystery school except that it existed. And the teachings were preserved for a future time. The Kala Chakra teaching may also be part of that, because it was re-emphasized and rewritten about by Tsongkhapa, a Tibetan Lama, back in the 14th century. So I'm going to leave that segment for now. Here's Buddha teaching late at night to his Arhats.